It was supposed to be a simple road trip, just me, my car, and the open road. I'd done it 100 times before. But this time was different. This time, I wasn't alone. It was late, past midnight, and I was driving down Highway 37, a stretch of road I'd taken countless times. But that night, it felt off, the kind of off that makes your skin crawl, like the world is holding its breath. The road was empty, just me and the occasional flicker of my headlights cutting through the darkness. And then I saw her. At first, I thought it was a trick of the light, a shadow maybe. But as I got closer, I realized it was a woman. She was standing on the side of the road, her arm outstretched, thumb pointed toward the sky. She was wearing a long, tattered coat, and her hair was matted and wild. Something about her made my stomach turn, but I couldn't just leave her there. Not in the middle of nowhere, not at night. I pulled over, rolling down the passenger window just enough to talk. "You need a ride?" I asked. She didn't say anything at first, just stared at me with these hollow eyes, like she was looking through me. Finally, she nodded and climbed into the car. The moment she closed the door, the air felt heavier, colder, like I'd just let something in that I shouldn't have. I tried to make small talk, but she just sat there, staring straight ahead. Her hands were clasped tightly in her lap, and I noticed something strange. Her fingers were unnaturally long, almost skeletal. I told myself it was just the shadows, but deep down, I knew something was wrong. After a few miles, she finally spoke. Her voice was soft, almost a whisper, but it sent chills down my spine. "Turn left up ahead," she said. I glanced at her, confused. "There's no left turn on this road," I replied. She didn't say anything, just pointed. And sure enough, as I rounded the bend, there it was. A narrow, overgrown path leading into the woods. I don't know why I listened to her. Maybe it was curiosity, maybe it was fear. But I turned onto that path, and the moment I did, the air grew colder. The trees seemed to close in around us, their branches clawing at the car like they were trying to pull us in. And then I saw it. A house, old and crumbling, barely visible through the trees. "Stop here," she said. Her voice was different now, deeper, almost guttural. I didn't want to stop, but I did. She got out of the car without a word, walking toward the house. I called after her, but she didn't turn around, just kept walking, her coat trailing behind her like a shadow. And then she was gone, vanished into the darkness. I sat there for what felt like hours, my heart pounding in my chest. Finally, I started the car and drove away as fast as I could. I never saw her again. At least, not in the way I expected. I tried to forget about that night, to convince myself it was just a bad dream. But then, a week later, I found something that shattered any hope of moving on. It was a photo slipped under my front door, a photo of me, sitting in my car that night with her in the passenger seat. Her face was turned toward the camera, her hollow eyes staring directly into the lens. And scrawled on the back in jagged handwriting were the words, "You shouldn't have left." I threw the photo away, but it didn't matter. More started appearing in my mailbox, on my doorstep, even tucked into my car visor. Each one was worse than the last. In one, she was standing outside my house at night, her face pressed against the window. In another, she was sitting on my couch, her skeletal fingers resting on the armrest, as if she'd been waiting for me to come home. I changed the locks, installed security cameras, even stayed with friends for a while. But no matter what I did, the photos kept coming. Then, one night, I woke up to the sound of footsteps in my hallway. My heart raced as I lay there, frozen, listening. The footsteps stopped outside my bedroom door. I held my breath, praying it was just my imagination. But then the door creaked open. I didn't move. I couldn't. I could feel her presence in the room, the air growing colder with every second. And then I heard it, a soft, guttural whisper right next to my ear. "You should have stayed." I screamed and turned on the light, but the room was empty. The only thing left was a photo on my nightstand. It was me, sleeping, taken just moments before. And in the corner of the frame, her face was barely visible, peering out from the shadows. I moved out of that house the next day, leaving everything behind. But I know it's not over, because sometimes, late at night, when I'm driving alone, I catch a glimpse of her in the rearview mirror. She's closer every time. And I know, one day, she'll be sitting in the passenger seat again, waiting. So if you're ever driving down a lonely road at night and you see someone standing on the side, keep driving. Because once you let her in, she never leaves.